Hello guys, welcome back to our channel, The Catalyst, our home of solutions. So today we are going to answer June 2026 Advanced Level Computer Science Paper 3. As you can see, this is the paper on your screen, okay, which was supposed to be answered in 2 hours. Okay, so now we'll start. The paper is divided into two sections, of course. Section A, database, and section B, which is programming. Okay, so without wasting a lot of time, let's dive into the question right away. Let's start with section A. Section A, database. Nina's shop. The relation R below keeps records of customers and the items they buy from Nina's shop. So we have this flat file R. Okay, it has these attributes and the fields and the records as we can see. Okay, then we have relation R has the following attributes with names of obvious meanings. The primary key field is underlined. So from the flat file here, you can already see that customer ID is the primary key. Even though when you look at this here, we have you can see here that we have for each record we have different primary keys, or we can see the same 0001 here as customer ID. So the primary key in this table here is customer ID. So that's one database design. In a fully normalized relational database, the database in the relationship R is stored in the relations customer item and customer item. Okay, customer item underscore. Okay, customer underscore item holds details about items bought by customers. Complete each of of these relations, making sure that the primary key attributes is or are underlined. Okay, so we can clearly see here. We start with the first. How do we get these attributes? We need to first of all look at how the dependency. We need to look at the dependency. We can clearly see here that customer name is dependent on the customer ID. So obviously, customer ID. If we have to break down this table after normalization, we'll clearly see that the primary key in the customer table, of course, is customer ID. Now, since I cannot underline it here, I will use asterisk to indicate that it is a primary key. So remove. Next, we have customer, of course, customer name. After customer name, what can we see identify that relates with that depends on the customer ID. I think there is nothing again. There's no attribute, no one attribute. So we move down to item. Item for item, of course, we look here. The primary key for item table is item code. Okay, we have item code. I'll put the asterisk to identify that's a primary key. Then next, we'll look at this. Now, item name is dependent on item code, so it means it's an attribute here. Okay. Uh, the next is here we can see unit price. Of course, the unit price depends on the item code. Every item has a unit price attached to it, so unit price is also dependent on this. What is the quantity? The quantity depends on the item code and the customer ID. So I think it should be down here. Yes, obviously the customer underscore item here. We have a composite key, obviously, which will be made up of uh, customer ID. So this should be. Oh, sorry. So customer ID here will be considered as a composite key. We also have item item code, which is also a primary key here, or customer or a composite key. Okay. Like we mentioned earlier, quantity comes in. So this is dependent upon the customer ID and the item code. So which other unit? We have total price. Total price here also depends on both attributes. So it depends on the customer ID and the item code. So we have total price. Next, the last one is T date, which is also supposed to be here. In some cases, you may even consider it as one of the attributes forming the composite key. Okay, as well as you can still consider it as a mere attribute in this table. Okay, so it all depends on you. So we'll just consider it as a mere attribute, which is T date. So with this, we have gotten all our attributes straight to the point. As simple, very clear. So let's move to the next question. It says complete the entity relationship diagram below for the entities customer, item, uh, item and customer item underscore. So when we look at this already, just from what we've gotten here, it's clear that we are going to have a one to many here, another one to many here, because this is the junction table or the linking table. It is the table that was gotten in the relationship customer and item, which was a many to many. So a junction table, the junction table customer item was now created. Okay, that contains all the two primary keys as composite key here, and then the other attributes are quantity, total price, and the TD. Okay, so obviously you are supposed to put something like a line here. I don't know if I have to do it in Word for it to be understood. Okay, maybe I'll open Word. Or better still, I can just implement it and then explain what I'm saying here after implementing all of this. Okay, rather than doing it here in Word. So let me just close this and let's dive directly into this part. We'll come back to this other part. Okay, so the first thing you say here in part 2 is a database implementation. in your favorite relational database management system, use SQL statements to implement the following. Okay, now for this implementation, we can use MS Access as well as we can use MySQL or any other server like one server. So what I'll do is I will create the database. Creating the database, you cannot create a table, you cannot create a database in Access via an SQL command. So what I'll do is I'll first override the SQL command here or SQL statement to create the database. So it is create database, okay, and then the name of the database. So that's the syntax with a semicolon at the end, as simple as it. So what we'll do now is we are going to create the database. Okay, we'll create the database. So let's start with Access, which is straight. We'll go straight to the point. Open Microsoft Access, and then I'll also open one server. It takes some time. So while it's loading, as you can see, while it's loading, we'll work on Access. Okay, we'll work on Access. So for Access, when you open the window, we'll see it. You select a blank database. You give the name of the database, which in this case, the name of the database is Nina, something like that. Nina Shop DB. Let me see. Yeah, Nina Shop DB. So let's say Nina Shop DB. So that's it. Then we'll save it. You click on that browse button beside, so that we can locate where we save our database. Where can I save it? Well, I have. Oh, this where I save. Okay. Oh, oh, the hell. Where did I read? Okay, this is it. My guide of A-level computer science degree. So I will put it in it so that this is a folder here. So, but for you as a candidate, you are supposed to save on a desktop. Okay, so I'll save there and click on create. So my database has been created, as you can see here. Now, in one server, I think it's already ready. Well, when one server is okay, it appears in this manner. You'll see this W. Okay, you'll see this W in green. If you see it, if it appears in another color, you can see it's in green. If it appears in orange, it means there is a service that is not running. So you have to solve the problem before you get there. So after doing that now, we'll click on this W. We'll move to PHP and then you move to your left here, PHP 5.2.1. That's the version I'm using presently. Okay, I'm using one server 3.3.7. So you click and then you wait for it to load in the browser. So you can see here. So we are done. It's done loading. So when we are done, the next thing we do is we make sure we enter username root in lowercase. Here, password should be empty, and then the server we are going to choose here is MySQL. Okay, MySQL. You choose MySQL and then you click on login. Oh my God, what's happening? Okay, so everything being equal, you'll get to this platform. So to create the database, we can go to the database here, and then we give the name of the database here. You just type the name here, and you click on create. You will create just like in Access, as well as we can go to SQL. We tap SQL here, and then we type what we wrote. Sorry. So you can just come here and type create database. The SQL command I wrote earlier. Create database. Nina Shop DB. Okay. Yeah, you do not need to put the semicolon. You can put it, it's still okay. If you don't put it, you'll still be okay. Okay, so once we've done this now, we'll move down and click on the button, go. And immediately the database has been created. You can see it on the left hand here, Nina Shop. So we'll just open it and we'll move to the next phase of our operation now. Okay, we'll move back to our operation. So for us, for easy understanding, I will minimize my window here and also minimize on this side so that it can be seen alongside. Okay, we'll do the two at the same time. So now the next question, it says Romans 2 now. In the Nina Shop DB, create the tables customer item and customer underscore item, and write down the SQL statement used to create the customer item table. Okay, the junction table. So we are going to write just the SQL command that has been used to create this one. The rest will create the tables. Okay. So what I'll do here is I'll start with the first table. I will take the attributes from here. So we'll start with the first table. Table name here. I will put customer. There are some informations that are already there. So I have the customer table. This table here. Okay. We have customer table. This is the table as you can see. Now it has just two attributes, so I'll put two here and I'll click on create. So let me minimize this part here so that everything can be seen fully. Okay, now on this side, now we'll start with the first attribute. We'll give the name of the attribute, which is customer ID, the primary key. Now, looking at the information we have here, we can clearly see here that customer ID is of type text. Okay, this is text. Why? Because it is made up of, or what we call alphanumeric. It is made up of characters and numbers. Okay, so the data type will choose either text. If you choose text, it will work. If you choose varchar, the next thing the most common, which is varchar. Now, what is the length of this varchar or this text? The maximum is 4. How do I know? We have the first character, second, third, fourth. So all of them here, they have four characters. 4 maximum. The length is 4. So we'll put maximum. The length is 4. And now this customer ID, remember, it is the primary key of the customer table. So we also have to indicate that it's the primary key. So to do that, we'll move to the right where we have index. This is index here. We'll select primary. That's to indicate that's a primary key, and then we'll click on go. Well, so we are done with this attribute. Let's move to the second attribute, which is customer name. So we'll type customer name. Okay. So customer name is also of type text, okay, or Vasha. So we'll choose the data type Vasha. Now the size, the maximum size I think should be this, okay. This fourth record here we have Eyeri Esther. So Eyeri Esther has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So if we have 12, we may just round it to 15, believing that maybe we may have a record or a customer name that is longer than that. Maybe we'll just make it 20. Let's give it 20. Okay, this one is not a primary key. So once we've done this, what are we supposed to do next? Let me come maximize the window again. You will see here storage engine. We'll change the storage engine to InnoDB so that it can help us to create the relationship easily for the relationship diagram, which we'll use to answer the previous questions which we abandoned before. Okay, so now if you want to see the SQL command that was used to create this table, you can just click on preview here before saving, and then you copy this. Okay, you can select this and copy. Okay, if you copy down into your answer booklet, that's fine. Now you can still use it also in Access and it will work. Okay, so but let's first of all forget about this. We'll come back to the SQL commands after creating all the tables, which we'll now use to create the tables in Access. Okay, so let's move. So we have created our table here. You can see the table has been created with the attributes, and you can clearly see here that there is an attribute that has a key, a golden key. This golden key indicates that it is a primary key. Okay, so let's move to the next attribute, the next table. So let's create the next relations. We'll go back to the database. Okay, now once we're in the database down here, you can still see again table name. Or let me minimize it. Down here, we see table name just like we did, for excuse me, just like we did for the others. We'll move to item. The next table is item. Okay. So the item table has how many attributes? 1, 2, 3. So we'll type 3 here and click on create. We'll do the same thing. What's the first attribute? Item code. So we'll type which is the primary key of that table. So we have item code. Now moving here, look at this item code here is so when we look at this, you clearly see that item code also is of type Vasha. So we'll choose Vasha. What is the size? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters. So we'll choose maximum 5. And now that item code is a primary key. So let's move to the right. On that index, we'll choose primary. And we'll click on go. Now, the second attribute is item name. Type it as it is. Item name, this is it. It's still a Vasha. The data type size, let's say 5. Also, we have 5. So it is not a primary key nor a foreign key. So we'll move to the next on the last one, which is unit price. So unit price. Now unit price, looking at this, of course, we have integers. So it's an int. We'll allow it like that. Storage engine will move down and select InnoDB. Once we've done that, move down. Like I said earlier, if you want to preview the SQL command, you just click on this and you see it here. You can copy it down to your answer booklet. But from these questions, they are not asking us for the SQL command for these two tables. Okay, so let's just click on save. It will be created. The table has been created, and we can see here the primary key on item code, and the other attributes are intact and okay. Okay, so we can move to the last relation, which is this customer underscore item, the junction table. So we'll move down here, and in table name, we'll give the name we have, which is customer ID. Excuse me. Sorry, customer underscore item. Okay. Now, how many attributes do we have here on our screen? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll add it to 5 instead of 4. We'll select 5. Click. Okay. So now we'll take the first attribute, which in this case is customer ID. As you can see, it is a primary key of type Vasha. So the data type Vasha, the size, what is the size again? 4. Okay. And it's a primary key and a foreign key. It's a primary key and a composite key. So we take primary, we validate. We'll move to the next attribute, which in this case is item code. So item code as a primary key, and item code is also a Vasha. Now the size of item code will have 5, and it is also a primary key. So under index, we choose primary, validate. Now the next is quantity. Okay, so we type quantity. So quantity, obviously, we can see here quantity is an integer. We don't need to put the size. It's fine. In some cases, you may choose a small integer. Okay, since it's just a 1-digit integer, so we may use small integer. Okay, it's still fine. Like, let's allow what we have by default. So the next is total price. Of course, it's also an integer. I don't need to even look at the flat file. You can see here it's an integer. Okay, and then lastly, t date. So we have t date. So t date is of type date. It's a date. We're dealing with date. You can see it here. We're dealing with date now. So we'll take date, type date, format here in the MySQL. The format, if we look at it very well here, we can clearly see that it is day, month, year. But in the MySQL here, MySQL takes instead, it follows the American standard, which is a year, month, and then day. Okay, so we are done with that. We'll move down to InnoDB. Okay, InnoDB, and then we'll also validate. Remember, of course, you can just click on preview SQL. You copy this because this is what we need, but it's not yet complete. Okay, it's not yet complete because we have not added the foreign keys. Normally, customer ID and item code are foreign keys. We have not yet added the constraints. So let's just create the table first. Then I'll show you how to add constraints here. So to add constraints now, we can clearly see here that we have two primary keys. Okay, it's clear here. You see the two primary keys here, and the other attributes do not have the coding key. Now, but we need to add the constraints indicate that customer ID and item code are foreign keys, and that they are all coming from customer table and item code respectively. They are the primary keys of these two tables. So how do we do that? You move up here to relation view. Okay, you click on relation view, and then once we get here now, we have constraints. As you can see, foreign key constraints. So we'll select the first constraint. The first constraint will be for customer ID. So we'll take customer ID. We'll move to the right. Where is it coming from? The database, of course, is from inner shop DB. Then now the table. Customer ID is the primary key of the customer table. So we'll select table here, customer. Now once we've done that, automatically it has fitted in customer ID as the column, which we need to create the constraint. So we have done the first constraint. Since we have a composite key, we now need to add the second constraint. So we'll click on add constraint here. And the second now is for item code. So we'll choose the column item code. Coming from which table? Coming from the item table. And then the primary key is item code. Once we've done this, okay, we can also preview the SQL command to add this constraint. If you click here, you'll see. You can see alter table. So we've added it. But now let's click on save. Now we have finally done that. So the constraint has been added already. How do we know that? If you go back to table structure here, you can see now that item code has two keys. Now the key, there's another key on customer ID, even though it does not appear, but the constraint is also added on customer ID. So this customer ID is also considered as a foreign key. Okay, so we have already done that, and now we have composite key here. So the constraint has been created or added on this table. Now we have created all our tables. For us to now see the SQL commands that we use to create these tables, because they asked us to write the SQL command to create the customer ID, the customer underscore item table. Okay, so all of this stuff, how do we now see the SQL command that was used to create these tables? We'll just click on our database up here, or on the left hand here, you see Lina Shop DB. You click, and then we can see all our tables here. We'll select, you check all. Okay, maybe let me zoom. So you click on check all here for all the three tables to be selected. Then we'll move on this side where we see with selected. You click here, and you move up to show create. This is to show the SQL commands that we use to create this table. So these tables. So we'll click on it, and voila. So we can all see these are the SQL commands for each of the tables created under this database. You can see this is the SQL command that was used to create the first table customer. This is the SQL command that has been used to create customer underscore item, which we'll use. Okay, so and then we have this one. So we are going to use these commands here to create our tables in Access right away. So I'm going to copy the first one. I'll go to Access because I don't want to create it visually. I want to use SQL to do that. So how do we create tables in Access here using SQL? We go to create, the tab create or mini create. Okay, under the group queries, you will now select SQL query. You can just click on SQL query here, or you go to query design and choose SQL view. So SQL query now, we'll paste that query I copied over there. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if it's visible, but let's zoom it. This is it. Create table. This. I've written everything. Once I've done that, I can hit on this button we see here. Run. Okay. Once I hit this button, voila, the table has been created. You can see this is our table with the two attribute customer ID and customer name. So this first table has been created. We'll save it. The first table has been created. Let's move back to MySQL and copy the second. Now we will not copy this. We are not going to copy this for now. Why? Because we have foreign keys here. You cannot create something that does not exist. We start by first of all creating the table that